combat and social interaction being the first and second pillar. So we're going to talk about Darkvision and all things related to it. This sparked me to make this video because of a video that Nerdarchy did calling "Is this ability ruining Dungeons and Dragons?" And it's the ability of Darkvision. On rare occasions, I go into mechanics, so I will do a little bit of quotes, some mechanical little bits and pieces, but how can we use Darkvision in a creative way? Not, we can be negative nannies about it and say, I hate Darkvision, or Darkvision is stupid, or it's too ubiquitous, everyone's got it, so why bother having it in the game? But I'm here to tell you that it is not the panacea to solve all problems that people think it is, and yet it is not something that is useless. It is a tool in the toolbox for the GM and the player characters. It's just how we think about it. So let's go over to, oh, by the way, if anyone is in the chat, hi Prue, if you're watching, what's up, young lady? Just put any questions in, comments, those kind of things. I'll try to get to them. You will see my face, the light on my face change a little bit because I do have some documents up. So just bear with me. I apologize. This is the first time I'm going to have like multiple screens to refer to things because I want to ensure that I'm correct in what I'm saying after reading it, and I'd like to read it verbatim. So anyway, Darkvision. Most of the time, there is a range in the game of Darkvision, meaning like Darkvision has a particular distance, 60 feet, 120 feet, 90 feet. You get plus 30 feet, something like that. In the game Darkvision, here is the quote from the SRD that talks about Darkvision. It says, many creatures in fantasy gaming worlds, especially those that dwell underground, have Darkvision. Within specified range, a creature with Darkvision can see in darkness as if the darkness were dim light. So we've got two things here. Within specified range, like I said, the average would be 60 feet, but it extends greatly for those that are highly adapted or a particular character build, or it may be limited in maybe a magic item or some other ability. And then also it says, can see in darkness as if the darkness were dim light. So we now have to think about what is dim light. So in the game, dim light is considered a given area, maybe lightly or heavily obscured in a lightly obscured area, such as dim light, patchy fog, or moderate foliage. Creatures have disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. So there's no, according to Darkvision, it seems here that it does not prevent the ability to use stealth. It does not allow you to see invisible creatures. It does not automatically allow you to see those creatures that have the ability to that look and blend into the environment if they don't move. Some creatures have that ability. Basically, it just gives you disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. So passive perception, if it has disadvantage, you subtract 5, it's -5, and then if you have advantage on passive perception or a passive check, you get +5. So passive checks of all types, you get the +5, -5 modifier if you have advantage or disadvantage. So for this, if you're just wandering through the Underdark and it's dark, that means that if your passive perception check is 17, it is now a 12, which means you may miss those, the crumbling wall, the hidden drow pit, the thin rock crevice, the narrow ledge, and those kind of things, if it's harder to detect or it's hidden from view, or the creature has stealth that's above a 12, let's say, for the highest rated character. Now, of course, player characters may have special abilities and those kind of things that modify that. Of absolutely, but that's not all that's listed under Darkvision. So if we go back to Darkvision, um, it says within a specified range, a creature with dark vision can see in darkness as if the darkness were dim light. So areas of darkness are only lightly obscured as far as that creature is concerned. However, the creature can't discern color in darkness, only shades of gray. In that one is a very narrative piece that allows you and I, as game creators, as the GM, the DM, as all things in the world, to build upon the world. Because after that fact, there are no specifics on what that means. So how I take that is that when it comes to particular materials in the world, such as liquids, gases, solids, if you can't discern the color, that means that you can only see things in shades of gray. That means that those things that are similar in color, greens and reds in real life, or those things that are very close in color, a light gray and a dark gray will probably disappear into the background, might be completely unreadable or unseeable, or it may have disadvantage and might require someone taking a specific action to see exactly what it is that they're looking at. So let's take, for example, liquids. So let's go with liquids. So we've got ourselves our oozes, our famous gray ooze. A gray ooze and water and blood, or some other kind of gelatin or something, you're not going to be able to see the differences between them because it's going to look gray. A bleeding creature, you will only see moisture on the floor. If someone says, well, after I kill it, and it runs away, I'm going to track its bleeding, you will only most likely see moisture on the ground. It may or may not be blood. So if the bleeding creature is running past, moist walls, there's no way, or very limited type of way, a very difficult way to track the difference between blood and water, unless someone investigates exactly what material is and one isn't. If any of you have gone spelunking, it's when you see water and liquids in a dark area and you have a limited light source, the depths and distances of that water can be a little bit disconcerting. So yes, a creature that lives underground will probably be more or less used to it, or at least have an instinctual way of like feeling first to see if it's a sharp drop where it's only 2 inches of water, or it's like 20 feet deep of water. But yes, Darkvision will modify that. It also seems to hint that societies that live in the Underdark and have dark vision will use light, simply because having disadvantage on perception and not being able to discern shades of gray means that they will need light for fine work, right? Whether it's embroidery, the shaping of weapons and armor, the writing of missives, markings on the wall, construction, things that require fine meals, celebrations, those things. Underdark areas will have light because they will need that light to be able to see, and to see for fine work. Someone having a ceremony for like weddings or a funeral or something like that will want everyone's attention, and therefore not have the chance that an errant misstep or mistake would happen because of the dim light and having that disadvantage. And so to eliminate that, they would have areas of bright light. Now, I'm sure maybe between outcroppings and buildings, along passageways, um, along the roads to an underdark type world. They would not have light until you maybe get close to city limits. And so therefore, yes, you would have very many areas that are dark, and those with dark vision would have that disadvantage on perception using sight, and therefore that's how that would affect the world. But yes, there would be light in civilized, sentient areas. Of course, we can always come up with ways that they create light, whether it's spell use, natural lichens or mosses, whether they are magical stones that are enchanted or a natural part of the world. Maybe there's a gemstone that, when struck together, they illuminate for an hour or something like that. You can always come up with something in your own setting. I heard in a in a chat one time talking about using candles as a method of an economy and the use of candles, and so therefore things would be charged and traded and valued in terms of how many candles it was worth, and then those candles could be used to burn to read special documents and things like that. But we can go a little deeper in terms of cultures that use dark vision. We can have special markings such as those used in Thieves' Cant or other languages, Draconian or Infernal, and we can have markings on the wall that may disappear under one form of light or another. So maybe they're visible under torchlight and disappear under dark vision, or the other way around. Without dark vision, it glows in the dark and you can see maybe messages or on the wall or directions or passages or warnings, and with bright light it cannot be seen. So you could have special inks that they use in documents that they pass back and forth through the underdark civilizations. And those of us from the surface world that go down there, who are used to living in a world of light and are getting kind of frustrated carrying around, the magic stone around the neck, the glowing sword, and the bullseye lantern and a couple of torches, and wondering where it is we're going to actually be able to stop tearing my eyes because it's so hard to see down here. Maybe we miss the warning signs or the directions or the territory markers that the underdark creatures have. And so you can play with that, have some fun with it. There may even be a method of using tattoos, markings on armor or shields or banners as well, that creatures in the underdark, that's how they communicate. So when they see each other, they can flash a hand, and maybe, or the back of a hand or the palm of a hand, and that represents who they are, what faction they're from, a political location, or maybe it's just a paint that they can paint on, a henna tattoo of sorts that's temporary, and the Smurf Niblin or the Durgar or the Drow, which all three we in the nerdosphere like to pronounce and claim others are mispronouncing in their own way. They could communicate from a longer distance. Now, here's the other thing about dark vision is that dark vision has a limited range, and those creatures adapted to the dark, just like in the upper world, they know how to stay up and down stream for air because of scent, would know to be up or down downstream, be at a specific distance from dark vision to stay out of that dark vision range because they may have it as well. Live and Let Dice says, I've always thought that spell effects in candlelight would be cool. And there's a possibility, narratively, absolutely, right? If someone casts a spell in candlelight, how does it look versus bright light? Maybe that warlock that cast that spell in candlelight, maybe there's shadow images of their patron that arcs through the the eldritch blast that maybe the player character has never seen or that the enemy has never seen, right? So if Amon or Baal or some other, Demogorgon is their patron, or even, the Raven Queen or something, maybe the Raven Queen's image or a raven itself appears in this blast as it flies down the hall, and this dark purple raven with black tendrils blast through the chest of the enemy, and then everyone's looking around like, I've never seen that before. We're gonna have to have a talk, So yeah. Also, what about spells that rely on color, such as like prismatic spells, chromatic orbs? Those kind of things may have an altered or limited or strange look to them. So creatures adapted to the dark may not really understand what a chromatic spell looks like, because it just looks gray to them in their world, right? They don't know that it has an alternate effect. All they know is that here comes this weird grayish energy source, and they're hit by lightning, and then the next time this energy source comes by, and then they're deafened by it, or blasted back, or it explodes with force, or they're burned by it. And so they may be unaware that that a fire can come from a source that doesn't burn red. Also, there's the possibility of the Darkvision not being able to discern different types of gases. So a green gas versus a blue gas. I mean, yes, they'll be able to smell it, but it'll just look gray. And so a lot of gases would just be, whether it's like deep pockets of methane gas that can burn, or gases that are poisonous and can harm you, burn your lungs, or knock you out, or put you to sleep, or hypnotic gases and things like that in the subterranean realms. Yeah, Darkvision won't allow you to recognize maybe various origins, but of the gases, but it would allow you to smell it. I mean, there's nothing limiting you from saying, oh boy, that smells like gas, or rotten eggs, or sulfur, or what have you. Now, the thing is that even in the Underdark, because of Darkvision, it only allows you to see in shades of gray. Fire itself would just look in shades of white and light grays, and not necessarily ivories, but brighter to darker tones, and then flickering shadows of darkness around it. So even in the Underdark, and a creature that doesn't normally use light or hasn't used light before wouldn't be able to tell the difference between like a red or a blue or a green effect, which also goes to show you that how would they know the difference between a chromatic dragon, right? Now, yes, intelligent species would have access to light. So yes, at some point, if they met with dragons underground, they would be able to just cast a light and go, oh, you're a red or you're a green. But normally they wouldn't know the difference between a metallic dragon or a red dragon unless it bit them in the ass, or they had a dissertation and were so used to dealing with draconians that they know that, oh, if this one has 3 horns on its head, or this one has smooth scales versus sharper scales, and knowing the different ages, or this one has 3 claws plus plus the elbow claw versus 4 claws and a longer middle one, they wouldn't know the difference. Now, of course, if they're in league with a specific draconian creature, they would absolutely know, okay, this is the red dragon that we're following, and yes, when he breathes fire, it burns, but it would just look gray to them. So like the difference between like the acid from a black dragon would just look like water. It would just be another liquid sprayed down on the ground. It would just burn away their allies until they got close enough to it and could either smell it or what have you. So those of you that joined in, we're just talking about Darkvision, darkness, fog, and smoke. I went through quite a bit, read some stuff from the SRD, just talking about Darkvision and how we can use it in the game. And it is not the catch-all. It doesn't solve everything, and it also isn't completely useless, right? The other thing that it doesn't solve is that it does not prevent the use of stealth. As a matter of fact, it makes stealth better, because with the limitation of having disadvantage on wisdom perception checks, a person, a human being that cannot see in the dark can still hide and use stealth, and may have a better chance of using stealth, because the other person with dark vision, although they can see, they're not going to trip and fall. If the human being's sitting still and are using stealth, they may not be seen, because there's that disadvantage to the person searching for them. So yes, it doesn't allow you to see invisible and those kind of things. Now, narratively, you can alter things. For example, if the human being can't see in the dark, so that means you're like, okay, you're completely hidden, but the minute you start moving around, now you got to move around like a blind person. And so the person with dark vision, the drow scouts that are with dark vision are looking around. Once the human being starts fumbling around in the dark, then sure, and that's just a narrative thing. That's the thing that you can keep track of in your mind as a GM or DM, and just play it by ear. But the creatures that do not have dark vision, that use light, remember that they're in a place that's illuminated where they're at, and then it extends out to dim light, and then that dim light has that same disadvantage to it, and then it just goes into darkness. Now, creatures that have extreme range in dark vision can use that as an advantage against those that have limited distances with dark vision. So your dwarves and elves and whatnot, that have 60 feet are in a precarious position against another creature that's got a distance of 120 feet. And if they know it, they can just stay out of range and fire from out of range. Now, remember, anything that's in darkness, the person is considered to be blind, right? They don't know what's beyond that 60-foot range. And in the Underdark, 60 feet in tight tunnels and things doesn't seem like a big deal. But when you go to a huge cavern that's hundreds of feet long, you're just going to be in your own globe of visibility and not be able to see what's beyond you. And so enemies up on a ledge, or something that's flying through the air, or a creature that's hovering, let's go to our beholders and thereof, ghosts, manticores, wyverns, harpies, gargoyles that hear, and of course the PCs can hear as well, things in the darkness, but they won't be able to see it until it comes within 60 feet. Hey, if they're smart, if I'm a dragon, hey, and I see my enemy coming at me, I'm firing at them with a surprise attack out of the darkness, breathing my fire. All they see is gray. Boom, they get hit, burned, or enveloped in gas or acid or what have you. And then I'm striking from outside of that dark vision range. Natural creatures who are aware of this, predators in the Underdark, know that, hey, the one I'm hunting on, of sneaking up on, I know if I get close enough to see them, they can see me, and so they may stay far away as well, either to run because they don't want to be found, or to attack. So now let's move into fog and smoke and those other things. Most of this has been talking about the Underdark, subterranean realms. Dark vision is still useful on the surface ground, right? If you've ever been camping or going out, in a place with low light pollution, the moonlight, your eyes can adapt and you can see in the moonlight. And yes, we just end up seeing in shades of gray, but we can still navigate. A human being can navigate away from camp. They just let their eyes adjust, and they can navigate just through moonlight, especially on a full moon, through the darkness and things, without not too many things tripping them up or knocking them down or whatever. Maybe have a tree branch hit them in the head once in a while if they're in the forest or something like that, or just watch the step. But fog and smoke is something that dark vision does not see through, at least according to the SRD, and you can also use this in your own setting. When there's foggy areas, it does not automatically allow you to see adversaries or enemies in fog. And that's a great, third pillar element that you can add into your game by having thick fog. Now, fog, you can just say everyone has disadvantage to see. You can apply disadvantage on, say, like ranged attacks. If you're close, you're within 5 feet, you don't have a problem. But anything beyond that is just all shadows, and not able to see who those people are. Game-wise, that means that there's some spell effects like healing spells or targeting spells that say you may target a creature within range that you can see. And so therefore, you may have to sneak up closer or use some form of illumination or a gust of wind or something to get rid of the fog. Or this allows maybe there's casters in your group that have been shooting long range attacks, and maybe this is a great way to spotlight those characters that the rogues and rangers and the barbarians in your group, maybe tabaxi or some other creatures that races in your group, and allow them to spotlight and sneak up or sneak around or sneak behind adversaries, and then eliminate that disadvantage by seeing through the fog. And fog is a very normal thing you can overlay in your world. After a heavy rain, the next day there's fog, or heavy snows, the temperature starts to go up, that moisture in the air is fog, and fog is just basically a cloud that's on the level surface. So you can have a foggy valley that's filled with fog in the morning. Here in the States, there's a place known as the Smoky Mountains, and that's because of how thick the fog is. And when you look over in the distance in the mountains, you see the fog intermixed with the trees and flowing over the trees and such. And it is very evocative, very useful narrative tool, and of course it has mechanical effect. Also, smoke is another thing that's a harmful hazard. When you have forest fires or flash fires across plains, or maybe someone's burning off crops or fields, or some kind of fire-breathing dragon or a wizard casts a flaming spell, and now everything is on fire, and now you have smoke. Burning buildings are great for that as well, or an errant fireball that someone lets loose, or burning hands, or a firebolt, and they light some tapestries on fire, and now you have smoke. Smoke, of course, is a visual hazard. You can, when the player characters start to split up, maybe they can hear each other, but they can't see each other. So if somebody goes down, now the person with the healing spell maybe has to find them in the thick smoke before they can apply healing. If their healing ability requires them to see their target, again, look at the spell component details. It says something in many of the spells will say that have a range, say one or more targets that are within range that you can see. Now, some of them may say that you are aware of or that you can hear, which is a difference that wouldn't be limited by smoke. But smoke can also be another hazard too. Maybe at the top of the round, everyone has to make con saves or become stunned. Maybe there's con loss. If you fail your saving throw, you'll lose a point of con or 1d4 points of constitution. Maybe there's damage. Maybe you apply you take a d6 of damage because of the lungs and hacking up the lungs or something. Smoke can also knock you out. Smoke is a killer. And so maybe you establish, okay, if you lie prone in the building, you do not have to make a saving throw. So you have to move at like half speed as you crawl down, because the smoke starts to rise. If you want to start, walking normally or running, dashing through this area, you're going to have to make a con save and such. And now remember, smoke also limits your vision. So you could say, well, if you're moving at half speed or slower, I'll give you advantage on, the acrobatics check, or the sleight of hand check to feel around, or the investigation check. But if you're dashing, if you're doubling your movement to run, I'll give you disadvantage. And you can do that as the game master, dungeon master, as long as you set that up beforehand with your players. So this was just sparked. Oh, and then you have yourself your I'm going to just call them chromatic gases, your unique gases, exotic gases, whether they're poisonous, they put you to sleep, they burn things. Live and Let Dice says smoke could be a way to limit spellcasters from completing verbal spell components too. Might make communication tricky too. Now, okay, I'll give this away. In the cinematic environment books that I write, I've included that in there. That if you're choking off of smoke or poisonous gases, you fail that save, you're considered mute. You can't communicate. So imagine trying to cast a spell. Now your verbal spells may be limited for like 1d4 rounds as you choke. Also, let's say you charm someone. If they can't hear you verbalize your instructions, maybe they just continue on the instructions that you gave them. Or you cast charm person or charm monster, and then they can't hear your instructions. They're just going to stand there and wait for you. Or maybe they go about their business. Yes, they're charmed, but they haven't been given instructions, so they wander away. Also, narratively communicating with your allies. You say, hey, you run here, you run there. I'm going to cast a spell. And then everyone's like, well, what did they say? I didn't hear. Wait, what? Repeat what you just said. I didn't hear you. The bard who's boosting the crew, or the person who's playing the warlord, or the person who's the overwatch, who's helping everyone out, the cleric that's blessing everyone and trying to give instructions. I think it's fully within the DM's purview to say, no, you failed your save. You're choking in the smoke. You can't establish that form of complex direction with your comrades, or change the game plan with your comrades, because they can't hear you, right? You're choking and gagging and coughing, which also means that if you're trying to be stealthy and you're the ranger and you're trying to be stealthy, moving around in the burning forest to go after the goblinoid horde and start choking in the smoke, they can hear you. And then therefore, if there's disadvantage on wisdom perception checks to see, that does not mean it relies on the same thing to hear. And of course, there's other environmental effects. If you have torrential rain or thunderstorms, or a waterfall or something like that nearby, you can apply those disadvantages to hearing instead of sight. So we can use the environment to bend and twist and cultivate obstacles for your players to navigate through. My intent is not to punish players, but to give this as the third pillar of exploration is a tool to add limitations to players to allow them to think outside the box. So yes, you could just make a random table, right? Okay, if you fail your save, roll a d6. On a 1, you take con damage. On 2, you just take hit point damage. On 3, you're mute. On 4, you're stunned. On 5, you're blinded from your tears in your eyes. And on 6, you roll twice on the table, right? You can add that in, write it up, say, it lasts 1d4 rounds. You roll some dice, okay? Have the players roll some dice. Players love rolling dice. Have them roll a die on a d4. That's how long it lasts, or that's how often it happens to you, and you suffer through that condition. And so now maybe one of the player characters is blinded from their eyes tearing from the smoke and the fire nearby, and they may not be able to see the fire coming. And then here we go, they've got dark vision, so they only see shades of gray. So discerning smoke versus fog versus a poison gas, not really able to do that. Now you may also want to the game doesn't 5th edition does not stack penalties. So a spellcaster, say, using fog cloud in darkness, the fog cloud does not stack with the dim light effect of the dark vision. So they both offer disadvantage. But if I'm not mistaken, fog cloud completely obscures an area, and so therefore something as simple as a fog cloud can easily blind someone with dark vision. Let's look up a fog cloud while I talk to you guys. So anyway, I'm just saying that being able to use the environment, such as darkness and fog and smoke, is not completely eliminated by dark vision. It's just changed and twisted by dark vision. It's just one of these things that allows you to have something in your toolbox. So under fog cloud, it says you create a 20-foot radius sphere of fog centered on a point within range. The sphere spreads around corners and its area is heavily obscured. So then we have to go to, heavily obscured. And so we go to heavy, heavily. So anyway, one of the things that we can also, I'm trying to remember, this is because I'm always doing this off the top of my head, damn it. Okay, one of the things we can use when it comes to dark vision, not just with communicating across distances like with languages and things of that nature, but because of creatures adapted to places with shades of gray, it's a possibility that there's nuance within the shades of gray that those of us that see in color from the surface world do or do not see, right? So what I mean is, I said before that, the drow may not know the difference between the different draconian types because unless they specifically know the biological shapes and sizes of dragons, they're just all going to look shades of gray. There's also the fact that maybe because of the shades of gray, they're able to discern specifics that those of us that see in color would not see. For example, to get this a little bit of racial, all drow look alike because they have black skin, but in a world where they all see shades of gray, they may see differences in the shades of themselves to know that some are injured or sick or older or younger or under the effects of a spell or something like that, that those of us in the vision world, to the lighted world, would not be able to see the difference in. So while one drow may know that two blades may look similar or are made of similar function, one of them may know that, hey, that's an illusionary blade. That does not look like, that illusion is made for someone who sees color. I see only in shades of black and white in the Underdark. That illusion it doesn't even look right to me because it doesn't have the nuance that I can see from people who make blades in my world. So you could have a situation where simple cantrips like minor illusion may not be able to fool or may be easily pierced by those who see in the dark because the person may not be able to cast a spell from their point of view. It would be like casting an illusion of a scent. As a human being, I can't smell like a wolf. So trying to create an illusion of a scent for me may be far different than for a wolf who's like, there's something wrong with that. That doesn't smell like prey, or that doesn't smell like food or blood, because it smells a whole lot different than this person is making it. So that is another option that, not option, but that's another limitation that someone can dip and dive in when it comes to that. So anyway, usually I'm going to try to hold these to less than half an hour, but if you know me, I do ramble. Most of my videos are pretty long because I like to deep dive a little bit. But anyway, I just want to talk about dark vision, its benefits, its limitations, how you can use it in a game. It is not ruining the game, and it is not a perfect, it's not this all-encompassing thing that settles everything. Having dark vision does not allow you to see as in bright light. It's actually called dim light for a reason. It's only in shades of gray, and therefore, as a DM, you can apply all kinds of obstacles and barriers and hazards in your game that otherwise you may think are useless, and they're not useless. It's just thinking of things in a different manner. Also, using fog and smoke is a great tool. So I'm DBJ, Davabrian Jackson. I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. My baby is Cinematic Environs. All the links are below to like Drive Through RPG, where our items are at, and where you can find us on Facebook. So look for me on like Absolute Tabletop, I post there as well. I post on the RPG Brigade, sometimes the 5th editions of Dungeons and Dragons. So just look for me out there, say hello, whatever. Thank you very much, guys, for checking in. Hope you're watching me or listening to me. And I like to do these things early on the East Coast because it gets my brain moving. It's kind of like, it's like my coffee. So I apologize in the beginning if it takes me a little time to get started, because it's quite early in the morning. If you live on the West Coast of the United States, you know, I'm up hella early. So thank you for participating. Again, there's a live chat. Just put in any comments if you want to, if you want to, you want me to talk about any specific things, and of course bring those things up in the comments below in the video. If you want me to bring those things up. Again, on Fridays I do Eclipse Phase, so I have Eclipse Phase Fridays. So if you're a person who's into sci-fi, if you love sci-fi, and I know I am, yeah, just participate with that too. We talk all things nerdy, futurist, post-human, and that kind of thing. So thank you for following along, and have a very great day.